In this tutorial, we're going to look at starting to program the digital die so that we can actually make it show different numbers on the screen, on its little display with its LEDs when the button's pushed. So let's take a look at how we do that. There's a couple of ways to do it, and one of the ways is using a flowchart, which is I think the way I'm going to do it first. So I'm going to go to flowchart, which is already here, and you see you've got the start shape already. And what we need to do is to kind of work out, if I was the die and I've just been plugged in, what's the very first thing that should happen? Well, I suppose a person's knee-jerk reaction would be they might say, well, nothing should happen, you haven't pushed the button yet. But at the same time, how do you know the die is turned on, So I thought what would be quite good actually is if we just turned on, I don't know, and showed the number 6 or something when we first turned the dice on, just so we know it's got some power. So let's think about how we might do that. Well, if I wanted to roll a 6 on this die, I need to turn on this pair and this pair here, and this pair just here. Something that occurs to me as well, it's been nagging me since I recorded the last tutorial, is I've put in a pair, a single, a pair, and for some reason in my mind what I'm thinking that I want to do is actually I'd quite like to have my single one attached to output 0 and have all the pairs after that. It just makes more sense for me, I think. So actually I'm going to do that now, just do a quick rewire. So I'm just going to delete this one wire here, and I'm going to delete this one wire I've got just here. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to, what's the neatest way? Actually, an even neater way would be to do this. Look, delete that wire and that wire, get that single one, pop that over here just for a second, get this double one, sort of line that up just sort of there, and then put this single wire up here. There we go. Now get more of a neat sort of look. There we go, and connect you up to 0 volts. And connect you up to 0 volts. There you go, that looks better. Anyway, sorry about that, where was I? Okay, so if I wanted to roll show a 6, whoops, talking and tutorialing at the same time, look. Alright, leave it. Yeah, if I wanted to roll a 6, I need to turn on this output, and this output, because that's a total of 6 LEDs. So that's outputs 1, 2, and 4. Okay, so let's do that when we first start the flowchart. So you'll see here in my gallery I've got all these different flowchart symbols, and there's one here for setting outputs. This sounds like exactly what I need. So I'm going to pop that just underneath my start flow shape. And if you put it close enough, it actually draws a line for you automatically. If I put that a little bit further away, it doesn't always automatically draw the line, but I can say, using these little boxes just here, look, I'd like to draw a line from here going to just here. So I'm going to do that first, and I'm going to stand them fairly close together because otherwise the screen's going to fill up really fast. And then I need to double click on this output to actually turn on and off the specific ones that I want. And the outputs I'm interested in are outputs 1, 2, and 4. Now if you notice I've double clicked on these, not double clicked, but clicked on them twice, it's because with an output you can either turn it off, which is what I've done with red, or you can turn it on, which is, the green, number 1, or you can say toggle, so if it's currently on, turn it off, if it's currently off, turn it on, so you use a toggle, or you can leave it with a little X, which means just if it was turned on, that's fine, just leave it. If it was turned off, that's fine as well, just leave it, okay? So actually I'm going to categorically turn that one off and turn the others on, so that's what I'm going to do as soon as I start my program up. Okay, so I've done that. Let's think about our circuit diagram. So we've plugged in the battery, we've turned the power on. What are we going to do next? Well, I suppose what we should do next is wait for someone to push the button, okay, which is, let's follow it along, which is G3, input 3, you're going to call that, okay. So I'm going to wait until someone pushes input 3, and until they do that, I'm going to do nothing else, okay, nothing else in the whole world. And so to do that, you use a decision diamond, which is this here, D for diamond, D for decision, and digital also as it happens. So I'm going to grab one of those and I'm going to pop that down here like this, and I'm going to double click on that so I can control it. And I've only actually got one input on this Genie chip, so the question I'm asking is input 3 turned on? If input 3 is turned on, then I'm probably going to want to do something with some more outputs down here, I should think. Can I draw a thing up there? Look, this says yes. If input 3 is turned on, go and do something with outputs. We haven't decided what that is yet, but we can put something in there later. But what about if they haven't pushed the button? Well, I said if they haven't pushed the button, I don't want to do anything. So at this point it becomes a bit like those big long car journeys where you say, are we nearly there yet? Are we nearly there yet? And that's what I'm doing here. Look, I'm actually going to send it straight back into the diamond. Okay, have we pushed the button? No. What about now? Have we pushed the button now? No. Have we pushed the button now? No. And we're going to ask that probably a couple of thousand times a second because that's how fast the Genie chip works. But the Genie chip won't get bored of us asking, so we can keep doing that. Okay, let's think about the more interesting thing though, which is what happens when we do actually push push the button. What should happen? Well, let's think about this some more. I reckon the easiest way to program the die would be to say something like, when a person pushes down the button, now bearing in mind, as I said a few moments ago, this thing can do a couple of thousand instructions per second. Okay, that's going to be useful to us. I reckon the way it should probably work is it should actually show a 1, then it should show a 2, then it should show a 3, then it should show a 4, then a 5, see I'm sort of hovering around with the mouse around the LED patterns, and then a 6, and then it should jump back to 1 again. And each time it shows you one of those numbers, when it shows you the 1, it shows you the 2, it shows you the 3, each time it shows you that, it should ask the question, are we still holding our finger on the button? And as soon as we take our finger off the button, then we should just leave it on whatever number we were showing at that moment in time and not show any more number patterns. And that's how we roll the dice. Because there's no way a human being can have that fast a set of reflexes to be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and actually visually judge. So they can always roll a 6. People just can't do that. So I reckon that's a good way of doing it. So let's just remind ourselves. So output 0 is a single LED. All the others are doubles. Okay. Away we go. So I need to roll a 1. To roll a 1, I just turn on output 0, and all the others can be turned off. I don't want to end up with everything turned on, so I better turn all the others off. That's that one done. Then I do the are we nearly there yet game. So is input 3 turned on still? If input 3 is turned on still, then what I want to do is to show the sort of light pattern for a 2. The light pattern for a 2, I need to turn off that single LED that I had on before, and I need to turn on my first of my pairs, a bit like that. Okay, so that shows number 2 now. And I can ask myself again the same question, is input 3 turned on still? If it is, I now need to show the sort of pattern of LEDs to roll a 3, so that's a pair and a single one all by itself, everything else turned off. And then, is it still got the finger on the button? So that's 1, 2, 3. What's probably a good idea actually, you can actually add comments to these little captions. Don't do anything, just purely there to help us as human beings to know what we're looking at. So I'm going to write this sort of here, 1, 2, 3, like this. There we go, looking good. Is that one turned on? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, looking good. I better do what to do if the answer to this question is no. If the answer to the question is no, but we've not got our finger on the button, I suppose we can just go back to this sort of situation here where we just don't do anything. Because we're already showing the number 1, we're not going to turn that off now, we're just going to leave that turned on and wait till the person pushes that button again. Okay, so that goes up there. That one also goes up there. I'll just link it on here because it still gets to where it needs to go, look like that. That one goes onto here, like that, looking good. 1, 2, 3. I need to do my 4 next, so stick a 4 in there. To do a 4, I need not a single one, I need a pair and a pair, like that, that's 4. Looking good. Another diamond. I'm kind of running out of room here, so I'm actually going to bring this flowchart back up here now. Like this. Stick you there. And always try and keep your flow lines neat as well, even when they start to get a bit big. If you start to pack everything in, you let the computer control where the flow lines go, it ends up really, really messy. Do try and keep a neat flow chart. Okay, input 3, is it on still? That was 4, wasn't it? Okay, the next one's 5. Let's do a 5 now. So that's going to be a pair, and 1 by itself, which is all turned off. And then finally, if we've still got a finger on the button, it's time to show somebody what 6 looks like. 6. Okay, so 6 is not a single, but a pair, and a pair, and a pair. That's 6. Looking cool. Let's send that back to there. Yeah, because that's going to take that into there. It's back to that sort of steady state before we started rolling numbers. And this one as well needs to connect up to that, like so. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. After the 6, if we've still got our finger on the button, because again, it's going to happen a couple of thousand times every second, so it's going to go through that at least once. If we do still have a finger on the number 3 button, where should we go next? Well, I suppose we just go back to 1, don't we? Yeah. So let's do that. So slip you down the bottom, around like that, up the way, and you go into there. Clip. Lovely job. And if we have taken our finger off the button, then we've rolled a 6 basically. Something a bit like that. I reckon that should do it actually. I'll put my comment in here just so I know that's a 6. Right, okay, let's test this and see how it works. We can actually test it on this view just here. I can click on play, and there you go. It's, you can see as it's actually working at the moment. So right here, right now, no one's pushed the button. The button's over on my circuit, obviously. And so we're just doing this loop, so nothing much is happening. I can actually look at my digital inputs and outputs of my circuit, and if you look on here, look, my input switch, my button, no one's pushed that, and I've turned on outputs 1, 2 and 4, because I told it to do that just here, so I'm currently kind of showing a 6 on that nice LED display panel. So that's that. Let's actually now push this button. I can click and hold my finger on this to simulate, so I'm actually going to hold my finger on here, and by doing that I simulate someone pushing that button, and you can see now it's rolling those different numbers in the flowchart. I've still got my finger on that button, I'm just moving my mouse so I can point this out to you, but it's showing the light pattern for 1, 2, for 3, for 4. Oh, that's interesting. You see that? Oh, hello, it's shooting back up. We've got a problem. Can you see what it is? Have a little look, take a moment. Why is it that that's not showing 5 and 6? What's happening just here? Well, the reason that it's not showing 5 and 6 at the moment like it should do, there you go, it's back up to the top, I took my finger off the button. The reason is, I've said, are they still holding their finger on the button? If they are, show a 2. Are they holding it? If they are, hold a 3. Are they holding the button? If they are, zip back up to the top. I didn't mean that. I've actually got my yeses and my no's back to front. So I can actually right click on this one and go swap yes and no, and that puts that right. Let's try running that program again, see how we do. So clicking and holding my finger on that button again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, back to the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. That's a bit more like it. And also as I'm doing that, you'll see here over on this right hand side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can actually see it showing those different patterns of LEDs, turning on those different outputs on the circuit. And when I take my finger off, if I take it off at just the right moment in time, I've managed to roll a 6. I've got a pair, 2, 4, 6 like that, and it's waiting for me again. So I think, based on what I'm seeing there, that this is probably exactly what I need to have happen. So I'm going to stop the flowchart, go back to my circuit diagram, and let's actually look at this working on the circuit itself. So I'm going to click on play, simulating. So there you go, I've just turned the power on, so I've got 6 LEDs all lit up. That's quite nice. Now I'm going to click and hold my finger down on my push to make switch, and let's look what's happening. So it's all lots and lots of flicker, lots of movement, and that's because incredibly quickly it's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And when I take my finger off the button, I rolled a 1. Let's try again. Rolled a 1 again. Ooh. Rolled a 3 that time. Rolled a 5 that time. There we go. So I've rolled 1, 3, 5, 3, 2. I've rolled a 2 now. I haven't seen a 6 yet. It'd be nice to see a 6 at some point. But anyway, if I roll enough times, I reckon eventually I'll hit and roll a 6 like that, for example. There you go. So you can make sure that you can roll all the different number combinations. So that's the most basic way of writing the flowchart for the die. What might be a little bit more sophisticated to make it look a bit more pretty, because although it looks kind of quite entertaining at the moment, as you see it here now, when you actually run that on the Genie chip itself, and it runs in real life, when you push and you hold your finger on the button, what it looks like is it looks like when you're holding the button down that all 7 LEDs are on all the time. And the reason for that is because they're turning on and off so fast that your eyes, as a human being, can't actually see them flickering, and that's what happens. So we're going to look in a future tutorial at what we can do to actually make it look a bit more pretty for the person using the die. But for now, we'll leave it there, I think. So that's the first step in making the program for the die. I'll see you next time.